Okay. The testing one, two. We didn't get a chance to do our sound check here.
Debbie, it's fuzzy.
Yeah, okay. Huey, it's fuzzy. Somebody said it's fuzzy.
It is fuzzy.
Wow, wow, wow. There's a, Johan, has this battery been changed lately?
This is not the battery.
It's fuzzy a little bit. Okay, who's gonna fix it? Well, welcome everybody. If we need to do a different microphone, we'll switch it out. We're getting started just a little late, but everything's always Baba time, right? So it's when Bob is ready. And we have an exciting talk to listen to today. Peter Nordeen came here 42 years ago as a young thing and became a resident and gleaned many things from the Mandali, stories that thankfully he's still able to remember. And over the years, he just reads and remembers. So today and even as as last week, he's reading new things because there's so many exciting things in the archives here. So thank you. And who knows what we're going to hear today. Lots of
summer at the 50th anniversary. We didn't have enough time, and you asked me to do this, so this is fulfilling the promise of getting the longer version in to try and get all the information. This period has been obscure for a few reasons. One being that it was early in the life mission of Meherabad, followed by subsequent phases of work and activity, so it was naturally buried in history. But another reason is that because for those who survived, who were alive after Baba dropped his body, they were sensitive to the experiences and family relationships that some of the people had, and there were still some sensitive feelings about some of these things that occurred there. It was a very intense time. But at this point, that generation has passed, so we feel a responsibility to present the history as accurately as possible in context. Because though no information is better than bad information, the right information in context is the best. So let's go back to the beginning and look at some photographs.
Move on.
Okay.
Let's get the mic working.
Can we take a pan out away from this? Pardon? Okay.
Let's switch the microphones. Hold on.
I'll switch it, okay. Okay. It's off anyway.
Maybe you could just stand there and talk loud.
Take it around the turn. I'd like to pull this back. This is not the full photograph. Okay, that's it. This photograph was taken around the turn of the 20th century. You see the name Bamanji, Jamshedji, and company. This, here we are. This is Soroush Shava, originally from Iran, came and settled in Ahmednagar. This young man with his elbow on his shoulder is the son of Soroush Shava, Kaikushu. He was married to Gul. They had two sons, Rustam and Adi, who were members of the early Mandali of Meherabad. This man is also named Kaikushu. He was married to the daughter of Soroush, named Gulnar. They had one son named Soroush, who was also one of the close disciples of Baba. Okay, we're 30 seconds in. Everybody got it? It won't be an hour and a half like this. The two Kaikushus were not only brothers-in-law, they were business partners. But this photograph in particular is unique and special for a particular reason, specific reason, and that is because this David Fenster and I are confident that this is the only image we have of the Saint Glory Shah right here.
Oh.
After many years, we feel this is most likely him. Let's go to the next image. Where?
She's saying we didn't know. I heard that, but I didn't see the red dot. Okay.
I don't know how to go to the.
It's the man in white on the right.
Thank you.
I'm trying to figure out how this works. Okay, I didn't get it.
With the garland.
I didn't get it. Johan, could you come and help me? I don't know how to change a slide on this.
Can
Sorry.
you blow up the glory shots?
We have.
Just roll up on the mouse.
Scroll up on the mouse. Okay, scrolling. Where's
Sorry about the
Where's my collection? Oh.
There it is.
Yes.
Oh.
You know the story about Glory Shah? He was a cook for Queen Victoria in England, retired, and somehow came here and settled in Ahmednagar. He was reclusive, however, he was friendly with the family of Sarosh Kaikushu.
What year was this taken?
This is just before the turn of the 20th century, in December 1899. Okay, let's go back to the big picture again. Can you not easily change this? Okay, let's go to the next picture. We're taking too much time on this. Soros Shavak was also a disciple of a Mazhub Salik in Ahmednagar. That's a perfect one. Named Bapu Sahib. This is a photograph of him. Bapu Sahib used to go to a restaurant owned by the other Kaikushu. Now, the Kaikushu was the father of Sarosh, the Manali man, was referred to as Kaikushu elder. So I'll refer to him as Kaikushu elder. He had a tea shop, a small restaurant, and Bapu Sahib used to go there for tea, but Kaikushu Sarosh used to serve him the tea. So he was also very close to this family. But that carefree look on his face isn't just because he had a lifetime free tea service. Just giving you this background because it is quite remarkable. This is not the only family in the instance of people who followed Meherabad who had these close connections to great spiritual personalities. Let's go to the next one. Bapu Sahib dropped his body before World War I. During World War I, the British Army constructed a quarantine camp for POWs here, some miles outside of the city. The site was suitable because it had good access both to the road and the railway. And on the hill to the west, there was a good opportunity for them to build this double water tank, which served the army camp below. It was filled by a well on the riverbank near Arangon, about a half a mile away. The water would be pumped up into this tank, and the valve man in this room would signal the pump man when the tank was full. With an elevation difference of about 50 feet, this supplied good pressure to the camp down here, which was situated on both sides of the road. You may have recognized that. This is the bottom floor now of Meher Retreat up on the hill. With his close associations with the British, Kaikushu Sarosh provided incandescent light bulbs and other supplies to this camp while it was in operation, which was less than 2 years by the time the war ended later in 1918. After the camp was vacated, the remaining stock and components were auctioned off here, and Kaikushu also had a role in that. Then almost by default, because the land was considered of not much worth, Kaikushu came into ownership of it, though his business partner, his brother-in-law, wanted nothing to do with it. So he came into the sole ownership of it with his wife. That is also around 1919. Let's go to the next image. This photograph was taken about 1922-23. This is Kaikushu and Gulmai and their daughters standing, Firoja and Dolly. Gulmai was a humble and quiet woman, yet she had trouble with certain relations, family relations. They gave her trouble. Through her life, she became despondent about worldly life. And in 1919, she was advised by Pendu's father, Masaji, also one of the Mahili, who was working for Kaikushu and Ahmednagar at the time. And also our small portion's father, also named Kaikushu,
Oh, wow.
to go and visit Upasni Maharaj in Sakori to see if she could get some help for her depression. She wasn't enthusiastic, but she went. When she saw Upasni Maharaj, she realized that he was the one in her visions earlier, and she immediately felt convinced that the purpose of her life was to be with him. That same day, she met Maharaj's favorite disciple, Meherabad, there in Sakori. Now, during this time, the same Gilori Shah started asking Gulmai for a plot of land on the property near Arangam. He said, I'm getting old now. I would like to spend my last days in a peaceful environment, quiet. You have that property. It's quiet there. I'd like to take a piece of that if you don't mind. She used to prepare and send his food every day. And to put him off, she said, Aswat, it's such a long distance. It would be difficult to send your food there every day. But really, she knew that if she would put herself in between her family and this outsider, what they considered an outsider, she would get a lot of trouble for that and cause unnecessary trouble for her husband. Time went on like that. In 1921, early in 1921, again at Sakori, Meherabad, now being referred to as Meher Baba, told Gulmai that her role in life was to be his spiritual mother. Some months later, Upasni Maharaj also told her that now Meherabad is your spiritual master. Take his counsel concerning all of your personal affairs. About the time this photograph was taken, Gulmai had a dream one night. In that dream, she was holding a baby in a blanket. When she uncovered the baby's face, it was Gilori Shah who said to her, "Please, mother, you still haven't given me my place to rest." She woke up and told Kushru about her dream, and he said, "Well, this is a definite sign. We should give him what he wants now." She said, "Nevertheless, I'll speak to Meherabad about it." But secretly, she sent that day a mason. She informed Gilori Shah and sent a mason with him. He came here in Tongas with some of his followers. He stopped there in the front, got down from the Tonga, and with a stick, he marked a square on the ground for the plot of land that he wanted. While the mason was mixing mortar to mark the corners, one of the men, the followers of Gilori Shah, said, "Hazrat, why do you want your dargah to be out here so far away from the city? We could give you your choice of the finest garden spots in Ahmednagar, and people will be happy to come there often. This is very difficult for people to come to." His answer to all of them was, "You people are like children. You don't understand what this place is. One day this place will belong to the whole world. The Barasat is coming." Barasat means the big boss. The Barasat is coming here. And very poetically he said, Whenever he passes by, the dust from his feet will settle upon my tomb. Let's go to the next image. Baba's birthday was celebrated in Bombay at Muslimin in February 1923. The next day was the formal engagement day of Kaikusharangul, my son Rustam, to Frangi, was renamed by Baba, also one of the daughters of followers of Baba. After the engagement formalities, Baba was sitting with Gulmai. It was conversation. Baba was saying, I'm going to close down the manzil here. I've got all these young men with me, and it's just no life for them. They need hard work and fresh air out in the country. I'm thinking of finding some place in the country. And Gulmai said, well, we have some property outside of Ahmednagar. Galori Shah says it's a good place. He told me I should bring Upasthi Maharaj and Meherabad there. Baba said, indifferent it seemed. I may or may not have them. And she said, then, speaking of Galori Shah, he's been asking us for 4 years for a piece of property there, a piece on that property near Arangal. Now he wants his tomb there. Without hesitation, Bob said, you give him whatever he wants, and make sure Kaikushu pays for all of it. There was a reason behind all of those things. So the plan was that Baba and some of the Mandali would come to Ahmednagar to attend the wedding of Rustam and Fredi, which was to take place on May 9th. And sometime after that, Gulmai would take Baba out here to show him this property. Baba, in the meantime, and before closing down the manzil, says, I'm shifting to someplace in the country. If any of you people want to stay with me, remember, it's going to be serious hard work. If you're not up for it, don't consider coming. The manzil was closed down April 20th. Baba came directly to Ahmednagar with some of his disciples. They came to Kushu quarters, now called Meherabad, and he stayed in seclusion there for 1 week in the room. After that, he went with a few of the Mandali to Happy Valley, which is now up in Meherabad, for about another week. And on May 3rd, they celebrated Upasthi Maharaj's birthday there by doing a mass feeding of the poor in the area. But Baba wanted to get back to Ahmednagar. So before midnight, they left, walking the 10-mile distance back to Ahmednagar. The next morning, Baba was already in an irritated mood because Gulmai had not returned from Sakori, as he had asked her to do, where she had gone with some of the other followers of Baba to celebrate Upasthi Maharaj's birthday. What happened is she went to leave and the Tonga driver was sleeping on the seat. She couldn't wake him up. So she herself had to take the reins of the Tonga and drive it back to the train station 9 miles away from Sakori. And she got too late and the train left, so she missed the train. Bob was irritated about that. And then as Adi was helping Baba wash in the morning, he informed Baba that there was this resentful attitude. There was an atmosphere of criticism about him at the house, Sarosh Manzil, and around, because many of these people, the relatives and friends, were already arriving for the wedding celebration, which was more than a week long. And the thing is, Baba and many of his disciples are of the Zoroastrian faith, and all of that family was, but they don't have a spiritual heritage like the Hindus and Muslims. They didn't respect spiritual personalities. They considered them shysters, opportunists to take advantage of guileless people whenever possible. And shamelessly collaborated with each other in this intention. So Adi was informing Bob about this, and he just suddenly, without saying anything, got up and walked away. Fed up. Leaving Adi to inform all the other Mandali that Bob was leaving. They had a standing order at the time that whenever Baba went anywhere, they'd get up and follow him. So they all went running after Baba, some of them putting their clothes on as they were chasing down the streets to Ahmednagar. Without explaining anything, Baba walked towards the station. But instead of boarding a train to leave Ahmednagar, he turned south and walked here in this direction another 5 miles. As he came walking along the road here, Arangan in the distance, he stopped and sat beneath that tree right opposite this door here, on this side of the road. It had a stone parapet around the base of it then. He sat on the east side. And, as Padre would say, playing the fool. He's sitting there saying, look, there's someone's tomb. It's not occupied yet. Oh, nice well there. Anyway, it was the middle of the summer. They didn't have breakfast. Very thirsty. And remember, they had walked 10 miles just the previous night on top of this. Baba sent two of the Mandali to Arangan to get something to eat and some way to drink water from the well. They found an old carpenter there who said, all we can give you in Arangan is bakri, if you're okay with that. That's what they prepared. He also gave them a bucket with a rope on it so that they could take water from the well. In the meantime, Baba and the Mandali with them started looking around the property. Just then, a watchman comes and he tells that when asked, he tells them that this property belongs to Kansa Kakushru Irani from Ahmednagar. The first thing they went to investigate was the post office building, which was the most solid building left down here in the camp area from the original camp. When they approached now Nashwan reminded me of this detail. When they approached the post office, there was a mudka on the veranda there. The post office was a building about 30 feet long east to west, 18 feet wide. It had a very nice long veranda to the east and partially to the south. As they approached the post office, Pendu saw a mudka there. He died of thirst. He rushed to drink the mudka. Just as he's raising the whole thing up to drink it, Baba from a distance threw a stick from the rubble and hit him alongside the head and knocked him over. There was a dead lizard, a dead gecko inside the mudka, and Pendu at least would have become extremely ill if he would have drunk the water. Soon, Behramji and Slamson returned from Arangan with the bakri and the bucket. They refreshed themselves. At that time, Rustam on his motorcycle appears here. He traced Baba's path, inquiring from people all along the way, and realized Baba had come here. He was very anxious and asked Baba, why did you leave? Baba said, I don't want to stay anywhere we are not welcome. Rustam said, well, what about the wedding? Baba said, I've changed my mind. Then Rustam said, you changed your mind? That's it. I only agreed to get married if you would promise to attend the wedding. I'll call the whole thing off. The Baba consoled him and said, it is my wish that you and Fredi get married. But it's better we stay away. So we'll stay out here. You send all the luggage out. All the luggage was sent out, bullock carts, and they stayed in the post office. That first day they cleaned the veranda. Next day they cleaned inside. They stayed here. That night, that old carpenter from Oregon brought a simple kerosene lamp to Baba for use in the post office. And Baba told him, your house will always have light. So that carpenter became Baba's first disciple from Oregon and his first Christian disciple. Came from Oregon. He was later involved in a lot of the early work here. Baba had promised to at least be close for the wedding. So the day before the wedding, they returned to Ahmednagar and stayed in Saroshma until the big house that was also just a few years old. They stayed, Gustaji and Baba, that is, stayed on the top floor of the cupola room there, in the tower, top of the tower, and the rest of the Mandali spread out in the large upper hall there. But the next day, now we'll go to the next page. The next day, of course, Baba nor any of the Mandali attended the wedding. Baba ordered the Mandali to help the cooks wash and cut vegetables and prepare for the reception after this photograph. This is a photograph of the wedding party in front of the gates of the Agyari, the Parsi Agyari in Ahmednagar at the time. None of the Mandali are in here, they're busy working. Baba directed them from a distance. Ramju wrote of it like this. They had to serve the guests who at best ignored them or gave them dirty looks. The Zoroastrians and Western guests were invited. But at least all the time they were working, they were thinking, at least there's nice vegetarian food that was made for us also. So we were starving, but later we'll have a good meal. In the meantime, Bob went to the kitchen there in his usual way. Oh, you made this like this, you made it like that. Oh, how did you stir this? Oh, with this. But how did you stir that? Oh, with this. Oh, so you served, used the same utensils, you used the same utensils on the vegetarian and non-vegetarian food, right? Yes. That was it. The Mandali were not allowed to eat any of that. So Ramju's comment was, we didn't feel welcome as guests or servants at Ruth says, wait. Let's go to the next image. If you want to take up just a minute here, we're going to show you a few people here. This is Rustam and Fredi. This is Fredi's mother, Dalit Mai, one of the very close and important early women disciples of Baba. Now this might, I'm not going to digress more than this. Let's go to the next, here is Goher and Katie's mother. Let's go to the next image. Okay, in this one, starring in the center is Miss Mani Esavani. Behind her is Gulmai's daughter Paroja, and this is Dolly. This is Goher.
Oh.
This fine young man here, looking to his left, is Baba's youngest brother Adi, Dara's father. This is then at that time known as Small Khorshid, or Khorshid. This is Baba's cousin, married to his brother, Big Khorshid. Small Khorshid's mother, Suna, the sister of Gulmai, is right here. This is Baba's cousin and his sister Naja, and this is Shireen Mai, Baba's mother. Standing behind her here is Pekushru Masa, Khorshid's father. This is Pekushru Elder, who had a lot of animosity for Gulmai at the time. trying to humiliate his brother-in-law here, Kansat Kekushu Sarosh, by telling him, you used to be a man. Look at you now. Your wife has become a magician, and she just mesmerized you. You're impotent. There's another man out of this picture, Gulmai's brother, who was really the instigator of this negativity against Baba at the time. Let's go to the other picture, back again.
Oh, man.
So this is Gulmai here. Gulmai said of this day, it was very stressful for her. She had no help from her own family because of her affiliation with Maharaj and Baba. She had no help from her daughter-in-law's family, that is Daulat, Mai's family, because those relatives were also not friendly about Baba, except for Fredi Masi, Padre's mother, who was also not in this picture. She didn't even have help from Baba's family because they didn't feel like they could step in because it was such a sensitive time. Now, I want to tell you one interesting fact. There is a connection. There is at least a distant relation on both sides, Gulmai and Kaikushu's family, to Baba's family. Gulmai says that when she was married in 1896, Sherry Arji attended their wedding in Ahmednagar. After the wedding, her father-in-law, Sarosh Shavak, took her by the hand, led her to meet Sherry Arji, and introduced her by telling her, touch his feet. But all this intense behind-the-scenes thing can just barely be seen in these photographs.
Peter, why isn't Vera there?
We'll get into that. It'll be another half an hour. It's another week away.
Another week.
So Bob was there the next day. Kekushu and a few of the other people arranged a nice Kavali performance for Bob and the Mandali in the upper floor of Sarosh Manzil. Bob very much enjoyed that. They stayed for a day or so. But again, that animosity, that atmosphere against Baba was obvious. And ultimately, Baba decided to leave. Gulmai's brother was a doctor. His name was Manusher Shah. Mansher Shah. Openly told them that this kid, you see, to them, he was just a son of Shariar and Pune who had toddy shops. He's going to usurp your property at Arangan, you see. And Gulmai would say, how can he usurp that property if we want him to be there? But there was this tension, so Baba left again. They walked this time to a dharamshala near the station and discussed where they might go next. In the meantime, Baba sent for the luggage from Arangan here, was taken back to them. They packed it up in trunks and carried it back to Kushu quarters to store. Carried it through town on their backs and their heads to Kushu quarters. When they sent their luggage in Kushu quarters to be retrieved later when they found the place they were going to settle, they were going to have it sent. When Gulmai heard this, her heart sunk. She got very depressed about it. They went back to the dharamshala by the station, and Kaikushu came. And he told Baba, I apologize on behalf of my family for the treatment you and your people got here was not right. Please feel free to use the property at Arundel. Baba's answer was, the fakir has no home anyway. It's not something like that I need to go someplace. And at the same time, I own everything, but I don't want to be the cause of division and trouble in your family, in relations. It's better we go away. Kaikushu said, I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care about those people. I care about Gulmai. And right now, she's beside herself with grief. So I pray that you will return to Meherabad and use the property to make Gulmai happy. So Baba was touched, and they did that. They returned to Meherabad on the 13th, and let's go to the next image.
But was it called Meherabad then?
It wasn't Meherabad then. Returned to the property. The right point. During those days, can we go to the next image? There. During those days, then back at this Arundel property, they started refurbishing the old building that was an officer's mess that is there on the north end of the property. This is a photograph of it maybe 12 years later. This is how it looked. They cleaned, whitewashed everything, worked on it for some weeks. Now getting to the issue of where was Mara during this time. Mara did not attend the marriage of her only sister. She was in Sikori. She was there for some time working in the ashram, doing menial labor in Blessed Maharaja's ashram with the other women there. A few days before the wedding, she had sprained her knee badly and it had swollen. And Blessed Maharaj said, I can't let this girl travel and go to this thing like that. She'll have to stay here and rest. But the real issue was that he was protecting her and her family from this pressure to get her engaged, because it was about time that she should. Once the first daughter gets married, the automatic reaction is get the next one ready. So that engagement would often happen at the wedding of the elder sibling. There was a relative of theirs from Pune who wanted her to marry her nephew. And the question was not resolved still. So on May 19th, Mara came here with her sister Frani and her mother, along with Baba's mother, who was in Ahmednagar, and and her sister, my sister Dalamasi, and Gulmai. They came to the post office veranda. The message was sent. Baba was working in this old bungalow with the Mandali still. Baba sent the message to them to sit and relax on the veranda of the post office. He would wash up and be there. He came to the post office and sat, and they all had Baba's darshan. This was the first time that Mara had Baba's darshan. He just touched his feet, he bowed down to his feet. Happened here. Although she had seen Baba in Sikori, she never had that opportunity. She never had any personal interaction with Baba up until that point. So the issue came up. What about Mara's engagement? And the older women were speaking for her, saying, this man seems fine, what's wrong with that? And this. And Baba said, had anybody asked Mara what she was? And they looked at him like, well, what does she know? She's only 16. And Mara was kind of hiding behind Frani, very shy, hiding behind her sister who was sitting forward. And she whispered, I don't want to get married. Frani said, she doesn't want to get married. Dalamasi said, sis, you mean you want somebody else? Well, try and find somebody else. They'd just gone through this whole thing with Rustam and Frani. It took a long time because their affiliation with Baba, people didn't want to get married into that trouble. So bad it was. So Mary said, no, I never want to marry. And Baba said, well, what's that? Can't hear. She said, I never want to marry. Brady said, she never wants to marry. Baba said, you all heard it. Don't bring up the subject again. And that's how the issue was settled. The refurbishing of this old bungalow, at that time, the mess quarters left over from the camp, was finished on the 22nd of May. And that evening, Baba and all the Mandali each carried their bedding and their baggage here to the bungalow, and Baba allotted places for each person. He took this room here for himself in the morning. As they were settling in at night, Pustaji, Baba's closest disciple at the time, Pustaji saw a lump under his bedding roll, and when he rolled back the roll to see what it was, there was a snake coiled there. Padma quickly killed it, and he threw it out. And Baba said, a snake? How did a snake get in here? They had seen many scorpions, killed scorpions here, but this is the first snake they saw. Baba said, better we go back to the post office to be safe. They picked up all their baggage, went back to the post office. And suddenly Baba was in the mood saying, you know, this place is no good. Snakes and scorpions. It's time for us to go. We thought, we just spent 2 weeks refurbishing this building and cleaning things up, and he wants to go. So we talked about where to go. It was time to go. But before leaving, in a few more days, Baba had Nervous, one of the Mandali, paint a signboard and nail it onto 2 posts. And it was planted between the post office and the railway tracks. And on that sign was written, Meherabad. That's when it was dead. Now let's go to the next image. They traveled up north as far as Quetta. This photograph was taken in Quetta. You can see they've been spending a lot of time in the sun. They did a lot of walking during that few months. You want me to go through names?
Yes.
Baba's brother Jal. Gustaji. This is Adi. Beramji. Nervous. Hindu. Babu Pale, Babu Saikowala. This is Slanson, Gustaji's brother. Barso. This is Masaji and his father. Baidu. Ramju. Asma, who was ordered by Baba just after this trip to go back to his father, and he never saw Baba again. And this is Padma. Taken in Quetta. They walked through a section of Gujarat. Hindu almost died. But for the most part, the next few months they spent in Bombay, and many of these Mandali worked on the different language publications of Upasi Maharaj's biography at the time. Let's go to the next image. In October 1923, they walked from Bombay to Sakori. This was taken along the way, and I'll name a few more of these people for you again. This is Raghunath Karmakar, who was the son of Durga Mai, Pasi Maharaj's close disciple. This is Ramju Adi Burjudaiwala from Dadar, Bombay. Gustaji here, Gani, Rustam, Beramji, Babu Saikowala again, Homi Bazifdar. This is Sarosh, Baidu, Slamson again, and this is Nervous. In December 3rd, 1923, Baba returned here to Meherabad secretly with only Beraji and Mustaji to do 4 weeks of seclusion in the post office. Only Gulmai and Adi and later Rustam were informed of his presence here. He continued that seclusion work in Bombay in January, and then they traveled to Iran for the first time, end of February into March. A very short trip. Padri almost died. They returned to India, and Baba traveled through the north of India with some of the Mandali. And at a certain point in Itarsi, Baba sent them all back to their homes. And for the only time in his life as Meher Baba, he traveled and worked alone for 1 week. Then he returned to Ahmednagar and told Adi to inform all of the Mandali to gather at Meherabad. During the first days back here, they completed the work of demolishing the dilapidated buildings that were situated mostly between the road and the railway on that side. They knocked the buildings down, cleared the rubble, leveled the grounds. After that work was done, Baba wanted a room built for his personal use about 130 feet to the east of the road over here. The old carpenter from Oregon worked with his crew, and a mason was hired from Ahmednagar. The Mandali worked as laborers. Baba, by the way, I forgot to tell you one thing. During the 1923 time, in all of that traveling in Quetta, Baba was fasting on watermelon juice. And as the Mandali were dropping like flies on that rock, Baba was hale and hearty. When they had returned to Meherabad on July 9th, and it was 5.5 months approximately since Baba had eaten solid food. So here at Meherabad on July 9th, he ate solid food. They stayed here for 3 days before they continued on Bombay. That was 1923 after the walking tour. So now we're back at Meherabad again. In April, early April, the hut was built there in a period of about 10 days in early April. So a typical day was like this. Get up at 5 o'clock, and each of the Mandali had to pray for 2 hours in whatever was customary form of their respective religions. It's not that Baba was encouraging religious practices, but he was using their lingering religious sanskaras for his own spiritual work, for them and for everybody they were connected to. Breakfast was at 7 o'clock. Breakfast was wheat tea without milk and bhakri. After breakfast, work started. But since it was summer, by noon it would be too hot, so they would again break. And lunch was bhakri and a cooked vegetable. After lunch, they could rest, wash clothes, bathe but not shave. Since they returned to Meherabad, Baba gave them a rule: no shaving allowed. And it wasn't, the practical reason was to save all time, any bit of time. But the other reason was that for these young men, it was an exercise in being indifferent to their personal appearance. 3 again, tea without milk at 3. From 3 to 4:30, they chanted an early version of the 7 names of God. Khuda, Paramatma, Allah, Ahura Mazda, Ram Yazdan. It was preceded and followed by a poem that Baba had written at Mazlamine, The Horizon of Love. At 4:30 again, back to work, the different duties. They, by the way, they all stayed in the post office during that stay in 1924. They were residing in the post office. So they would have their meals on the post office veranda, and a lot of activity happened. At 6 o'clock, it was dinner again. This time, vegetable with Baba. Oh, by the way, the Baba had said, I told them, you're doing hard labor here. You need to build your health up. So everyone should eat 2 or 3 almonds a day.
Oh,
After dinner in the evening, then Baba would often sing, accompanied by Adi playing sitar. Baba would play the dholak and sing. We would get a discourse. There'd be some discussions, explanations, and this would go on till usually about 10 o'clock at night. They'd go to sleep, and that was a typical day. On October 13th, on April 13th, Ram's birthday was celebrated over here at the Jopti. They fed about 1,000 people. Baba made a statement that evening. Once I settle in this place, the atmosphere will be greatly elevated spiritually and then materially. I have a great mission in my life to perform for humanity. And in the near future, it will be evident to the world. That day also he named that hut the Jopti. On the 16th of April, they began the work of refurbishing that bathroom building that was there. It was the last of the 4 buildings that was left from the army camp. This work of also hauling things around was done by them manually. They had no beasts of burden. There were no bullocks, donkeys, or anything. So they had a hand cart that they would pull by themselves, push through the fields, to carry rocks and whatever. One day, as they were doing this work at the bathroom, Padri and Ramji were standing there having some conversation idly, and a stick went whizzing by their heads. There was Baba. Baba throwing a stick. The hell are you doing? Not working? A little later, while the Mandali were gathered with Baba, Padri, like this, showed his palms to Baba, full of blisters. All his hands were all swollen. Baba looked at his hands and said, "You people swear you'll sacrifice your lives for me, and a few blisters on your hands, you start crying and whimpering?" He said, "It is a sin in this path to complain about these things. This life is nothing but one wound after another until your body gives up the ghost. So seal your lips and let me kill you slowly, inch by inch." That would be the brave thing to do, not coming to me whining with your blisters on your palm. What is the average person going to think? Well, maybe this life is a little harsh. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. But for Padri, it was poetry. Anyway, his hands were bound. So he was taken to Ahmednagar, to a clinic there where he had to be treated and recovered for a few days. In his place, because he was manager of the Mandali, Ramju was elected. So that means Ramju had the responsibility of delegating the work and waking the Mandali up at 5 o'clock in the morning. That was the duty. So Ramji was doing that for one day, and then he came down with a fever, a high fever. And very soon after that, Baba got irritated with the rest of the Mandali, saying, here is Ramji suffering with a fever, and you all have shown how considerate and concerned you are. Not much. This is the way you behave. So there was disagreement about management. Over the next day or so, Padre returned. And when he returned at the post office Friday, they had a meeting about the management. Baba had then decided to break it up into 2 branches. Padre agreed to take the labor management, but nobody readily offered to take the home management, which meant cooking and everything that went on at the post office, hauling water from the well there and cooking. Finally, Mustafa took that, so that management issue was settled. But it was a difficult time. It was summer, meager diet, hard labor. There were a lot of squabbles between the Mandali. And during that time, Baba finally said, now I'm giving you 2 rules. As of today, every morning, each of you get up, touch the feet of each of the other Mandali and say, you are my brother. Rule number 2, if any one of you speaks unkind, harsh words to any one of the others, I will be immediately informed, and I will come and fall at the feet of the offender. Barstow, right away, objected. A little Orthodox Muslim, he said, I cannot follow the first rule. It is against the Shariat of Islam. Baba said, I'm not asking you to place your head on anybody's feet. You simply touch their feet with 2 hands in a humble way. But Barso insisted that it's against Shariat, so Baba said, okay, for you, just shake hands. Can you just shake hands with the other ones? Baba turned to Ramju and said, do you find any problem with this violating the Shariat? He said, Baba, I don't see that rule number 1 violates the Shariat, but I can never follow personally, I can follow the rule number 2. Why? I can never allow you to bow down to my feet. And at that, Padre and Nervous agreed that we don't want to do that either, Baba. Baba explained, this is my order. I want you to do this and follow my order. Padre and Nervous, after a bit of an explanation, agreed to follow the second rule. But still, Ranju didn't want to follow that. So Baba took him aside and said, you're doing the same thing Barso did. You're just stuck in this orthodoxy. Why don't you want to follow my rule? How is any Shariat greater than my wish? He said, Baba, I don't like it if you touch my feet. Baba said, you come here with me and you're talking about like and dislike? You should like what I like. But Baba, it would break my heart if you touch my feet. Baba said, well, maybe it would break my heart if I don't touch your feet. He said, my wish should be supreme. Ranju had nothing more to say. Baba said, okay, anyway, the lesson was taught. Baba said to Ranju, you are exempted from the second. And that was there. So on April 23rd, there was some conversation. Now that Baba had a seat, the Mandali were thinking, we should have a place to mark Baba's seat. So the Hindus said, yes, we should have the orange flag there. Everybody knows at the place of the spiritual personality, there's always the orange flag there. Then Ranju objected, saying, you know, that is Hindu color, orange. Bit garish, maybe. Green is best. And the Hindu said, green is the Muslim color. You want the Muslim. And the Parsis and Iranis said, we don't like any of those colors. Baba settled the issue by saying, the flag will be of 7 colors. Sky blue on the top, red on the bottom, and the other 5 in between you argue amongst yourselves. But that day it was settled, and it was sewn on that day in the afternoon by Dina Talati, our chairman, Sridhar Kalkar's mother-in-law. And that evening it was put on a pole and raised above the Jyoti for the first time in 1924. The next day, at lunch, Padre, being Padre, said something critical to somebody at lunch, and it was brought to Baba's attention. Baba came and bowed down, touched Padre's feet, and Nervous was standing to the side, and Baba quickly leaned over and touched Nervous's feet to tease him. But Nervous took it very seriously, and he began to weep. And Baba said, I didn't touch your feet or any fault of yours. Of my own accord, I touched your feet. Just relax. But Nervous couldn't let it go. It was very upsetting. Continued crying, he said. He thought, what's the point of this? I can't stay here anymore. I have to leave. Why? You could do anything at any time. I can't take this. And Baba said, I'll exempt you from the order. He said, it's not about orders. I'll follow all of your orders. I have to go. Not to. Okay. Do you need some money to travel? But a few days before, there was an issue because one of the Hindu Mandali wanted to go to Pune to visit his mother. So he asked Baba for money. And Baba was very irritated that one of the Mandali would ask him for money to go home and see his mommy. So he made this rule, the non-African Christians are asking me for money to go home and visit your families. That's a rule. Knowing that rule in his head, Nervous said, no, I don't need any money. I'll just go. But Baba said, how will you travel if you don't have any money? Nervous said, I have these buttons. They're gold-plated. I'll just pawn them and I'll get some money. Baba said, gold-plated? So he gave the buttons. The buttons were, the old-fashioned buttons were on a what do you call a strap. It would be buttoned from behind. So Baba said, I'll allow you to go under 2 conditions. You must beg for your food. You cannot borrow or steal ever. And Nervous agreed, and he started walking towards Nordeen. Baba said, and one more thing, wherever you go, I will follow. Thinking, spiritual metaphor or something. Nervous continued walking here towards Nordeen. But he realized Baba was walking right behind him. So he started just quickening his pace. Baba stayed right behind him. And then he started running as fast as he could, and Baba was then running beside him. And soon Nervous realized the humor of the situation. And he laughed, and they returned to the post office. Baba here said, why did you get so excited? Baba, you touched my feet when I didn't do anything wrong. He said, I touched your feet. But if you had no fault, you wouldn't have reacted like that. You did have a fault. If you would have had no fault, you would have remained calm, accepting it as my wish. What was your fault? Your fault was you thought you were faultless. In order to show you and everyone that you are not faultless, I had to touch your feet. Then he said, but I tell all of you, I will take away all of your faults. So the work went on for the next so many days. around the Jogdi, although the main building was done, which included the roof, and at that time, it wasn't what it is now. This has been rebuilt some years back. But at first, it was teakwood bullies, trees that were just harvested. They made the rafters, everything out of that, and was covered with clay tiles. So, okay. So they continued to work the end of the month of April around the Jogdi. They paved the veranda there with pieces of broken Farsi that were left over from the camp and also material that would be shipped in from Ahmednagar. Rustam all this time was living now with his wife in Ahmednagar, but his responsibility was to take care of supplying the needs of Meherabad. And invariably, he would make some mistake in following Baba's orders to the letter and be reprimanded. Baba was very strict, and it was still an ongoing training for all of these people, how to follow every order to the letter. They also began planting a garden around the Jogdi. There were 3 pits dug on each side of the Jogdi where they planted chameli shrubs, flowering shrubs. Behind the Jogdi, there was a bathroom built for Baba there, on the veranda just behind the Jogdi. And Baba would take his bath there, and the water would run out. And they stuck a tree in the ground, a banyan tree, that was just a cutting there behind the bath at that time as part of the garden. It's just something you would do with these wet areas. The only thing left of that original Jogdi garden now is that huge banyan tree behind the Jogdi. It's still there. 1944. That was originally watered by Baba's pathway. There was also a fence put around the Jogdi there, and a gate in the front. You see the gate near the Nordeen, what is now the Nordeen, that was set there then, in that location. On April 30th, Gulmai had returned from Bombay. She had been thinking, let's go to the next image. This is the way Baba looked then. Up until that point, this is the way he dressed. Pants and long kurta. On April 30th, Gulmai bought something new, though, for Baba to wear. She wanted Baba to wear something distinctive. So he was given a sadra, a long sadra to wear. That's when he started wearing those. The end of that month. There was another visitor then, an Irani, who knew Baba at Maisuri. His name was Ardashir. He had come, he brought a lot of fruit, nice fruit. Baba was saying, such nice fruit. Baba and Ardashir was saying, you know, I'm an orchardman from Iran. I know how to grow things. You have a good opportunity here to have an orchard. And these monthly, you know, they have spare time in the day. We could still do it. There's still a lot of work that could be done around here. Baba, the orchard is one thing, but Baba, that extra labor for the monthly sounded really good for me. So this tyrant Ardashir was named Director of Agriculture, which meant more work for them in the coming weeks. That orchard was built right here in front of the Pilgrim Center, from the Jogdi Garden all the way to where the bus garage is now was a mango orchard. So that work began in early May. But on the same day then, while Gulmai was there with Baba, came 2 prominent Zoroastrian men from Ahmednagar with a chip on their shoulder, challenging Baba refusing to take off their shoes, they marched right up to the Jogti where Baba was and started shouting, "What are you doing here? What kind of yoga do you do?" Baba said, "Labor yoga." Know the term Gamela yoga? Gamela is that steel bowl? That phase was known as Gamela yoga phase. Why do you go around naked? Baba said, "Wearing pants and shorts, clothes." "Why do you wear those clothes?" "Oh, asking never wore clothes like that." "Yes, he did." So these people were obviously trying to incite Baba to be angry, and he just accepted it humorously and answered logically their illogical assertions, which made them more angry. And ultimately, they started shouting and abusing Baba. "You're a charlatan, you cheat people, you one forward and another." Finally, Adi had had enough, although he was a young man. He had had enough, and he said, "That's it, get out." So they went to leave, and Baba called Adi and said, "Look, now you've insulted these men. Go and beg their pardon. I want you to bow down to them and beg their pardon." So Adi said he had to do it. Their car was parked near the Dooney. As they approached the car, he said he had to just swallow it, go up to the car and said, "Please, I beg your pardon," and touch their feet. And he said, the man was like, the way I can describe it. But 2 days later, the man came alone. He couldn't sleep. Was one of the prominent old Zoroastrians, one of the Nagabalas. And according to the history, he would come to have Baba's darshan from time to time during the following years. On May 7th, Baba wanted to go into seclusion in the new Jopli. So they canceled the prayers, the usual prayers in the morning. He wanted the Mandali to focus on preparing the Jopli because why? The screen for the windows and vents had come the day before. So he wanted them to quickly get that in place and go into seclusion. He went into seclusion that day, and this time, besides fasting in seclusion, he added one more component, which was keeping silence for the first time. He communicated by writing notes through those low windows. The reason the Jogti has those low windows on each side is so that Baba could pass these notes up to the attendant who was just outside the Jogti. But after just a day or so, Baba started speaking to people. He told the Mandali, "My health is failing. I feel very weak. My body is not coping up with this." He said, it's not from fasting and I'm not ill. It's from the burden of this work. It was as if now that Meher Baba had, for the first time, a seat in this world, in the form of the Jogti, he was grappling with that immense inertia, that immense spiritual inertia of the age. And it required tremendous effort to affect any movement spiritually. So that first seclusion, there in the Jogti, only 1 day of silence, and that was the effect. But Baba continued that seclusion for a week there. There was a big argument again amongst the Mandali. He called them all on May 12th and scolded them. One of them just left back to Pune. He couldn't tolerate the ashram life with Baba. Scolding was too much for him. Baba, pardon?
Who left?
Chiman Chowdhury, his name was Chowdhury. He was one of the early Cosmopath Boston Maharaj Mandali. He came back, but not for that time. Baba came out of that seclusion on May 15th and immediately ordered Padre fix a screen door on the Jogti now because I will have to go back into seclusion, but Pasi Maharaj's birthday was scheduled to be celebrated there on May 20th. So Baba wanted people to come to celebrate Pasi Maharaj's birthday, yet he had to remain in seclusion. So they could take his darshan and have the interviews from outside the screen door while he stayed inside. So on May 18th, I want to go back to one thing that happened here earlier. But when Baba came here again, after some time, some of the children from Oregon were attracted to him. So Baba from the post office would meet them beneath the tree on the west side of the road there. That neem tree is still there also. And in this way, Baba would lure them to Meherabad by joking with them, giving them snacks. And every day the group would grow and Baba would begin. In 1924, he began his work with children there, teaching them nursery rhymes, different things. This was his first work with children there. That work was then handed over within a few weeks to Arjun, who continued that work through what we call the first long stay at Meherabad. And so Baba went back into seclusion on May 18th. This time not keeping silence. Nervous was sent into Ahmednagar that day to bring supplies for the celebration of Upasana Maharaj's birthday. While he was there at Kushru quarters, Kansep Kushru said something rude to him. When he returned to Meherabad, of course, Baba in his way weaseled the information on him. Oh, you were there. What did you do? What happened? Who said that? What happened? Oh, Baba was very upset. He called Adi and told Adi, you go to Ahmednagar, tell Rustam he doesn't have to come back here anymore, and you tell your father any insult to my Mandali is a direct insult to me. So Adi went, but on his way he saw Rustam, and Rustam convinced him that he should return to Meherabad. Rustam waited there outside the Jyoti garden. Adi pleaded on his behalf, Rustam wants to speak to you. Baba allowed it, and Rustam persuaded Baba that his father will behave himself. He does really want Baba to be here. Kakushu was caught between this rock and a hard place. He was a worldly person, successful. It was Baba who first said to him, Ruby Kansep, and he laughed years before. And now he was. But he didn't understand his perfect master business. Although he was surrounded in his life by spiritual personalities, being a disciple was a different matter. But that irritation was there at the time. The next day, Mara, her mother, Baba's aunt, arrived from Pune. Other people had already been here in advance to celebrate Pasi Maharaj's birthday. It was exactly a year after Mara first bowed down to Baba, to a day that she came to stay here for the first time at Meherabad. Baba had refurbished that bathroom building so that those close women disciples could be there, closer to the Jyoti. The rest of the guests stayed in the refurbished bungalow at the time. Let's go to the next image. So Pasi Maharaj's birthday was celebrated on May 20th. A big celebration again, a big feeding. There were the traditional Hindu birthday celebrations in the afternoon. And just as they were starting to do the special cradle rocking of the birthday celebration, a storm came up, high winds, quickly Baba distributed prasad and everybody ran back to their shelters. Baba came out of that second seclusion on May 23rd and very seriously gathered the Mandali. And from each of them, he said, I want you to take an oath. Before me, you pledge an oath that you will stick to me. Tell me. And they repeated the words. Each of them did it, each man. He was there, his day, Baba came out of seclusion. And then Rustam showed up in the afternoon and said he had a request on behalf of his father. Sarosha's sister, Sarosha the cousin, his sister was being married that evening, and Kansab asked that Adi should also be allowed to attend his cousin's wedding. Adi was staying with the disciple of the Mandali at Meherabad. And if he's allowed, then he should be cliched and he looks like a mutt right now. So it was under the rules, no shade. Reluctantly, Baba granted it. And since Mera and Dalit Mai, his in-laws, were staying at Meherabad, the family there should attend also. Again, Baba allowed them under one condition. All of the early women, Irani Parsi disciples, had to wear this thing called matubanu, which is a white scarf in long sleeves, very old-fashioned, out-of-style look. So they had to attend the wedding wearing this matubanu. Adi returned to Meherabad that night about 10 after the wedding, and Baba began to lament. You disrupted my work. This is how you respect my work. You see, the thing is this. Here was Baba. They realized then that they had put their religious and cultural traditions, they had given those more importance than Baba's wish. So Baba started lambasting Adi. You disrupted my work. You went along with this program. And Baba was in a bad mood. The next morning it continued on the 24th. Finally, Rustam and Gulmai came to Meherabad. Rustam was already hurt because Baba had been sending him these messages since the early morning. This is the way you regard my wish. So when he arrived, Baba continued with this. Finally, Rustam lost his temper and he said something rude to Baba. Baba was very insulted. He said, that's it, I'm leaving Meherabad. This is the end. There was one disciple from Lonavala who was here with Gunny. He had a car, his name was Abdul Tayyab, and his car was parked near where the Dooney is now. Baba marched straight to that car and got inside. As many as the Mandali that could fit in there squeezed in to this car. Baba said, I'll never come back to this place. Do what you like. People were running after Baba. The women were crying. Some of the men started crying. Baba says, go. So Abdul Tayyab turned the ignition, the engine started. At that, Gulmai began to weep. And everybody rushed in the car, begging Baba to stay. Please forgive us. Please forgive us our sins. Please don't leave. And Rustam also. This went on for a long time. A lot of tension. Baba said under 3 conditions. 1, Adi can't stay here. 2, Rustam and Kaikushu never come to Meherabad. 3, this property must be transferred into the name of either Adi or Mustafa. Pacified Baba, they agreed. Baba got down from the car and he said, only because of Mother Gulmai am I staying. The next day, Rustam returns to Meherabad with the answer from his father, which was, does Mayor Baba think so little of me that he doesn't trust me to leave my name on the deed? He just didn't get it. All he had to do was say, yes, okay. But as Adi used to say about his father, he was a loud-thinking man.
What is it?
A loud-thinking man.
No, loud.
Adi was like that too. So again, Baba was upset. He told Rustam, go back, tell your father, those are the conditions. You don't like it, we're leaving. He sent Ranju afterwards also. A reply came back from Kaikushu. I apologize because of written reply. Hope we find this in the archives. I apologize for a misunderstanding earlier in my response to Baba. I would be so happy if he would remain in Meherabad. The next day to break things up, Baba wanted, he went with a group of the Mandali to Elora, to visit Elora. He thought it might change the atmosphere. Baba would sometimes do these things to change the atmosphere. They went to Elora. Sarosh was driving one of the cars. They were in Elora, they stayed there. Baba in the afternoon said, I don't feel like staying. Do any of you want to continue staying or should we go back? Instead of taking the hint from Baba, they said, well, we've come this far and we've never seen it, so let's just stay and sightsee. Needless to say, from that point on, the trip was a negative. Constant breakdowns in the car, getting stuck by the tires, it rained. They dragged themselves back into Meherabad the next afternoon, covered with mud from head to toe, exhausted from this trip. The mood was still like that. Baba started saying, we have to go someplace else. We're going to go someplace else. Weeks before, Baba had been taunting Rustam about his new car, because Rustam was attached to his new car. Baba said, I want to use your car to travel up north. No, you don't have to come, but you can come. Just to taunt him. So again, he started that thing. And there were plans to drive up north. Adi was going to accompany him, of course. And Baba wanted Sarosh to be one of the drivers. Sarosh was also, of course, staying in Ahmednagar. He didn't have permission from his father to be with Baba like that anymore. When Sarosh showed up at Meherabad and was informed that Baba wanted him to drive also, be one of the drivers, he told Baba that, I went the other day to Aurangabad with you, and my father was very upset and we had a big argument. And there's no way he would ever allow me to go with you. If I go, that means the end of any relationship with him. So Baba said to the other men, you see how we're regarded here? You see how Sarosh is thought? Should I stay in a place where we are regarded like this? And there was a resounding chorus, nay, from the Mandali. The Baba said, you heard it, we're leaving. It was decided to leave. So within a few days more, they made arrangements, and they were leaving. Except one more thing happened. Adi came very upset. Baba, why did you're looking for any excuse to leave this place, to quit this place. Why did you say you wanted to make this your permanent camp in the first place with all this trouble? Baba again said, why should we stay when we're not wanted? And Adi went on, arguing with Baba, and Gustaji interrupted Adi, saying, why are you speaking rude to Baba? And Adi went on arguing with Gustaji. Baba told Adi, keep quiet, but he was so lost in his rage that he went on. This is the way Adi's nature was too. Finally, Baba slapped him. Adi was shocked and he stopped. And he started weeping. Baba consoled him. And Adi just finally said, please stay. Forgive us our sins. Please stay at Meherabad. Make this your place. That was the last thing that happened. Then they decided to go. But there was an issue with animals. By the way, this is the only photograph we have of Baba in 1924. It kind of captures that wild look. So there was an issue with two animals. Baba wanted that year a white horse and a white ox. He named the horse Sufi and the ox Saint. There was also a dog, a white dog, but he wanted to give these two animals to Pasi Maharaj as a gift. So he ordered Padri and Nervous to take these animals to Pasi Maharaj in Sikori. Baba and most of the other people left to Bombay on June 2nd. That day, Padri and Nervous traveled to Sikori with these animals. They had to lead them. These are special animals. They couldn't be ridden, they couldn't be whipped. So they had to lead these animals to the train station in Nagar, take the train, a freight train, to the station near Sikori, walk the remaining 9 miles to Sikori. The problem was these weren't docile animals. The horse had a habit of biting, like we said. So he had to lead the horse, and as he went, the horse would come up, sneak up behind him and bite him like that. And the ox had a habit of kicking. So after a really difficult day, they finally got to Sikori late in the night, and Pasi Maharaj was in a bed. And after shouting at them, they begged to at least be able to rest there in the night, and they did. He allowed them to rest in the night, and they thought maybe his mood will be different in the morning. But the next morning, Maharaj, again, after they asked him, he started shouting, drive these people out! They're thieves! They're trying to pass off these stolen animals on me. The police will come. Get them out! They knew there was no hope. This was some issue between Baba and Pasi Maharaj, one of those typical things that would go on back and forth between them. It was really, what it was is there was always a maneuvering of taking work. Well, Pasi Maharaj would want to take work from Baba, and Baba would not always want to give him that burden. Anyway, they returned. On the return, Nervous suffered a bad kick to his knee from the ox. Anyway, they got back to Ahmednagar, gave the animals over to Roost in charge, went to Bombay. Baba got a good laugh out of their trip, and they traveled again up to the north, again up to Quetta. While they were in Quetta, Nervous became very ill. His immunity had suffered because of the kick to his knee and the exhaustion of all the work and all that. And he came down with typhoid. And Baba told the Manli to give him the best of care, but in the meantime, Baba purchased a cemetery plot and said, he's going to die. Nervous died on July 16th, 1924. His death was symbolic of this end of this early phase, the establishment of Meherabad. He was the one who planted the sign, Meherabad, by the railway tracks. We have one more image. I just want to show you a young image of Adi. He had gone through all of this trouble. You know, Mera relates to us how the weeks after they left there, before they went up north, she peeked in the room in Bombay and saw Baba embracing and kissing Adi. He was so pleased that Adi went through this period of fire. But it was an example of how Baba took this family. Baba was beginning his work here, his mission, going toe to toe with Maya, making a stand here at Meherabad. You know, Erich used to say, Meherabad is Baba's home. Meherabad, Baba's office. He referred to Meherabad as the spiritual battleground. And it's still that way. Still like that. This is the place where Baba did his work to make the great change. And being beyond time and space is continuing today. We're going to stop here at 6 o'clock. That's